Hello, I am Rebecca Silvestri, VP of Sales and Marketing with Local Profile, and this is Local Leaders, interview series with incredible local leaders. Today, I'm talking to an amazing woman. So give us a really quick recap of, your career and where you've come from and what you do now.
Oh, wow. How much time do we have?
In 1 minute.
Well, it's funny because some people see me as the news gal, other people see me as the marketing PR gal, and really I have worn so many different hats. So, as my husband would say, the Reader's Digest version, that I have been the spokesperson for the Florida Department of Health, for the American Red Cross. I was a PR director at North Shore University Health System in Chicago. I was a reporter in Tallahassee, Florida. I was a news anchor and reporter here in Channel 5 doing a technology segment. And then I was a reporter in Chicago and a TV show host in Chicago. I also did a stint for the Weather Channel for them up there in the Chicago market. So I did a lot of TV stuff in the Chicago area and then did modeling and acting as well. So I made TV commercials, print ads throughout my career. And then once I had my son, I created Rikki Ragland Media Group, which enabled me to still use my PR skills and my media skills, where I've been promoting doctors and physicians and doing it around my son's schedule. So that's been really great. So that is my entire career over the last 30 whatever years. So
well, you did a very good job to nutshell
Thank
that.
you.
Okay,
so stuff out. So
right. Okay, so your family, 7 generations of Texans, but you were born on the East Coast. You've had a pretty unique childhood. Can we discuss how that upbringing has contributed to you becoming a leader now in the community?
Yes, I am a proud half Texan, though I know you cannot be a half Texan when you're in Texas. You're either a Texan or you're not. So, but I had a son in Texas, so hopefully that gives me some kind of merit. But my mom was 6 generations Texan. I was born in DC and then raised partially in DC and in Maryland. I grew up in a really wild community, so it's been featured a lot in the media, but I grew up at a former girls' seminary school. Our house was a colonial house. Next door was a windmill that at one time actually had a working windmill. Behind us was a castle with a working drawbridge. And up the street was a pagoda house. So that was my first home. Lived there for several years. And it's so funny, it wasn't until we moved away into Columbia, Maryland, which is a planned community, that I realized most people didn't grow up like that. So it was really cool. My dad was, or is, a retired colonel. So I was born at Walter Reed, proud of that as well. But a lot of times, we had ambassadors and congressmen and different dignitaries that would come to our house for dinner. And so my brother and sister are 10 and 9 years older than I am. So our parents instilled in us very early on to learn how to communicate with dignitaries, use their proper titles. I think that's why I'm still a stickler of kids not calling me Rikki. Miss Rikki is fine, Mrs. Marber is fine, but I grew up that way and I still address, adults who are older than me by their proper titles. And I just think having that upbringing where we were spending, weekends with our commanding general at a place called Fort A.P. Hill. I call it our little Camp David for the military, but having that environment really, it was very powerful to me. And I was growing up looking at leaders. My mother and father were both leaders in their communities. My mom was always featured in the San Antonio newspapers anytime she did anything. She would go to college and come back and they're like, Dr. Atkinson's daughter is back in town. And they both made a big impact on me. And I think that's really where that core foundation of being a leader comes from. With our family, success, not being successful was not an option. You had to be successful. My sister went to an honors college. She was always one of the national honor societies. My brother went to Wharton. I was an outstanding woman in my school. So having that sibling rivalry also helped to create the leader that I am today. I mean, my siblings were amazing. As my sister says, she would run through the woods, cutting down the trees just so I could walk through. But I did work hard, you know, and trying to keep up with them was, it was, I won't say it was difficult, but it could be a challenge. You know, I went to the same college as my brother, 9 years after my brother. And when I stepped on campus, everyone said, "Oh, Ragland, aren't you Sherman Ragland's little sister?" And I thought, seriously, he's been gone for 9 years. So I worked really hard to get my own identity. And then when I did become Outstanding Woman of the Year, my brother swooped in and became Outstanding Alumni. So that's the kind of, you know, that's the kind of family that has kept me going in terms of our leadership and what we've always given back.
Wow, that's quite a family. That's amazing.
So yeah, it's, you know, they say that you can't choose your family, but I honestly would have chosen my family. I would have chosen, my parents were a powerhouse in two things: creating their kids and raising their kids. And then, you know, in their own right, in their careers, they were powerhouses too. But those two things were, you know, those are the two things that really, I look at my parents and just say, thank you, thank you, thank you for what you've done for us. And to watch my brother and sister and me and the successes that we've had has been, it's been really great. And I attribute it to them and, you know, our grandparents, our great grandparents. My grandmother was born in 1901, and you know, she was getting A's in Latin when she was in middle school and high school. So I think it's just kind of ingrained in our blood, and all of our cousins are like that too. So,
okay, but it kind of all been sunshine and roses. There must have been some kind of adversity and challenge. So what kind of adversity and challenges has your family and you gone through that you've overcome and it's made you stronger?
you know, there's a lot that people go through. And I think, and it's your question about making you stronger versus setting someone back. You know, obviously our country's going through a lot, and it's coming to the forefront with racism. That has not obviously gone past our family. I mean, in terms of passed over our family, you know, my mother, she integrated higher education. My father, even though he has his titles and my mother has her titles, they still have been called, you know, derogatory names. I have been passed over for opportunities because of what I look like versus what's on my resume. But, you know, we have always been that type of family that you have a choice. You either let those things set you back or you make them propel you forward. And I remember one time, just career-wise, it had nothing to do with racism or anything else. When I was at the Florida Department of Health, and the same day my boss and I and other people lost their jobs. We were having a change of, yeah, that was a fun day. So we were having a change in regime in terms of the governor coming in. And even though we had all voted for that particular governor, it didn't really matter. And so it was funny, on my last day, I went to lunch and came back and my boss was packing up her bags and she's like, "I'm gone too." So it was one of those things where I said, okay, well now here I am sitting in Tallahassee, Florida. I had already been a reporter. I didn't want to go back to the TV station that I had worked for. And I had to figure out quickly what I was going to do. And I got a call from my brother and he said, "I just got a grant for a startup.com company." And at that time, the internet was really, really new. And I flew back home, went to Alexandria and helped him start auctionnews.com, where we covered the news in the auction industry. And my brother was sending me out to random places around Alexandria to learn how to write HTML code, how to build a website, like all of these things where I thought, what in the heck is this internet thing anyway? And then to have to learn the backside of it and building a website. And then when the grant ran out, I was again going, now what? Came to Dallas, visited my sister, and while I was here, started interviewing with the TV stations and landed a job at Channel 5. Almost did not even mention I had gone into doing a startup with the internet, because I didn't want to shoot myself in the foot that I had stepped out of TV broadcasting. Little did I know they were looking for a technology news anchor. So in the very last minute, I was like, the news director is like, whoa, what's this little gap on your resume? I was like, I kind of did a little startup with my brother. She goes, tell me about it. And then the next thing I know, I'm, having a set built for me and online Rikki Ragland. And I ended up introducing the internet to DFW. So it's some of those things that you think this is the end, and you realize you just have to refocus, strategize, and pivot. I think pivot is probably going to be the number one word in the dictionary for 2020.
Well, right. I mean, okay, so that brings me to my next question. How has it been for your business this year? So much has happened.
My business actually picked up during COVID. It sounds kind of weird that you actually say I'm not profiting, but it's working for me.
Yeah.
Because traditionally in my company, I was promoting doctors and healthcare organizations and mammography centers and getting them on TV and in print media. And then I got a call from a PR agency out west from a guy who said, you've been recommended to do some media relations for us. Do you want to just do a short-term contract for, a couple of weeks? And I started promoting their B2B artificial intelligence and IT healthcare companies. And then after I did it and I was able to secure some really great media for them, they came back to me again and said, well, can you work another month? And I was like, sure. And then they came back and said, how about a 3-month contract? How about, so it just kept building. And then I had another company come in with a healthcare system. And they said, we have a lot of hospitals and a lot of physicians, and we would like for you to do our media relations. So it's been good.
That's really great. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes it's great. Well, I find if you've got the right mindset, then things work out.
Right. That's true. So we'll see what's around the corner. One thing that I've always been told by my mother, my father, and my grandparents is never let anyone box you in, ever, for anything. Never let somebody put you in a box. And so I say that to say, who knows what my next venture or my next opportunity is before the year is over.
Right.
So stay tuned.
Here comes 2020.
Right.
So you said that part of why you started why you started your company was so that you could spend more time with your son. So especially now with homeschooling part of the time and virtual learning, how are you maintaining a realistic work-life balance?
Realistic or just work-life balance?
A survivable work-life balance.
Oh my gosh. It has been really interesting. I will say that one of the things in my favor is I was actually homeschooled in 5th grade. So I have an idea of how to be a student, but I also have an idea of how to teach it because of my mother, who was a lifelong teacher and college professor. And so she really taught me how to teach. So I've been able to balance it by starting him off. I will say, first of all, it's easier now because he is back in school face-to-face, but he did start online and he ended this last year online. And so it was one of those things where I would set him up on a project and then I would turn and do my calls and start doing all of the things I needed to do for my job. And then I would come back to him. But it also got to a point for this year where it's more work. He's in 4th grade, where I actually had to email the teacher and said, do you mind if we just turn this assignment in at 8:00 tonight, instead of at 2:00? And the teachers in his school district, I will say, are so forgiving. They're so wonderful, and they have been really great to work with. I mean, these are teachers who say, you know what, you can turn it in by midnight, or let's give you, a little bit of time maybe over the weekend. And they understand what we're going through as parents. And then you just have to take a breath,
Go with the flow.
Scream a little bit.
Right? Okay.
But my kid has been really resilient. And I think that's what helps too, is if homeschool works for your child, then that's kind of half the battle.
Yeah, I think it's certain children for sure. So, Rikki, one thing I notice about you, and we've been friends for a while, is you're always very positive and upbeat and happy. And so I know it's easier said than done, just be happy. So, how are you, or what tricks or tips do you have for maintaining a positive outlook?
Oreo cookies and Chardonnay. No, seriously.
Sweet!
Which also leads to the COVID-15. Just want to let you know that. But I'm just one of those people where, again, I think it comes back to my family foundation, and it's not that I'm always like this, but I've also been told, a lot of us have learned this too shall pass, and it's true, and it's true for things that are positive or negative. There are times that I have been on such a high, I'm like, this is going to end soon. Like, you can't stay up here forever, but you also can't stay in the lows forever. And I think for me, it comes from being just so thankful and just feeling really blessed with what I have and who I'm with. And that's what keeps me going. During the beginning of the pandemic, it wasn't that great, which is why we had the Chardonnay and the Oreos. But I have parents who are back east, they're in their 80s, and not being able to see them for more than a year. I've never gone that long in my life of not seeing my parents that long. And when we were ready to go back, the pandemic hit. So that prolonged it. And then we finally found that little window where we said, okay, we've been quarantining. Obviously, you've been quarantining. Let's bite the bullet. And we took a shot at it. And we were able to fly home and see my parents, my brother, my sister, their families, their kids. And that really helped to rejuvenate our entire family. But I was kind of on that downward spiral because of this. And that positivity, it was out the window. This is doing a lot on our, wreaking havoc on our mental health, obviously. But during the pandemic, a lot of FaceTime calls with my family has helped. And even though as a big family, all of the cousins, we've always been like one big group of brothers and sisters, I have never texted, called, and FaceTime my extended family more than I have in the last few months. And it really helps you to prioritize, what's important. And it's been nice to just spend this time, as much as I love philanthropy and going out, and well, we used to go out, but you know what I mean? But doing all those wonderful ladies' nights and all that, life is a cycle. And you just have to pick and choose what is important for the moment. And so I'm glad that I did all of that before the pandemic of the going out, so I can really focus on family.
I think that's beautiful. And I think it's just, okay, well, this is the situation now. So I'm going to be grateful and enjoy what's happening now.
Yes. And just be thankful that every day I can wake up and call my mother and call my father. And I know that a lot of people don't have that luxury. And a lot of people have lost loved ones during this time. And I just sit there every night and go, thank you for giving me that chance to, on a whim, call my parents and talk to them about something, whether it's some crazy TV show or something that's happening, growing up, but to be able to still have them and hear their stories and, have them talk to my son and really have that special relationship. Those are the things that keep me positive and going.
That's a real blessing. Okay, so, and this might be from your mom, I don't know. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Well, this too shall pass is one of them. And it's funny that you say, this is actually from my grandfather, through my mother. It was her father. And he used to say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And you can interpret that in so many different ways. And a lot of people have said that, but I have found that really holds true. That when I sit there and look at a situation and say, this isn't working, or what can I do differently, or how can I approach this, that I find that there is more than one way, as graphic as that sounds, to skin a cat. And when you reach adversity and when you have people who are going against you, and I've had that, people have watched me have that, where I have attained or achieved something and it didn't set well with others. Well, that's not, my issue, because I worked hard for that. But when that adversity happens and I have those people who are saying, okay, I'm going to put some roadblocks in your way to prevent you from achieving that, well, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I'll go around it. And I think it really helps to have a network. It's great to have sayings and mantras and words and to get you through. But I think unless you have a network of people to also help you navigate those waters, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to put, the Post-it note up there in your mirror and look at it every day and say, okay, I'm going to achieve greatness. But you need that positive reinforcement. So for people who don't have that, I would say if they're able to reach out to someone, a friend, a relative, somebody who they can rely on, their go-to partner. Just like people have those, responsibility partners when you're going off to the gym, have somebody that you can bounce ideas off and things off of, your personal life coach that you can talk to help really apply those mantras and those ideas.
I think that's two great pieces of advice. Always think, how can you do things differently? And have important people around you who can support you.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you, Rikki. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I love talking to you. I could go all day talking to you. So you're awesome, Rebecca.
Best day ever. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone watching. We'll be back next week on Tuesday, 11:30. Look forward to seeing you. Bye-bye.